Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to take you through a quick demo of our password safe solution that allows you to manage your most sensitive and privileged credentials. So privileged credentials present a significant risk to your business if they're not properly stored or managed. And Password Safe gives you an efficient way to actively manage and control your privileged accounts, automate the rotation of passwords, and also it provides a great deal of visibility into what's taking place through session monitoring and reporting and analytics capabilities, which ultimately help you to meet and maintain compliance. I have a couple of different slides here that I'm going to show that I think are going to provide some context around the things that you'll see in today's demonstration. Okay. So today we're focusing on the privileged password management pillar using the password safe solution. But these three pillars represent the different beyond trust solutions that we can provide. With Password Safe, we could manage all of your credentials and your privileged accounts, such as Windows, local and domain accounts, Linux and Unix root accounts, basically any sensitive privileged credential that you want to secure and manage. So we manage and discover service accounts and automate password rotation on those. We also have a REST API for managing those application to application requirements. We support SSH key rotation, and we provide full session management. That gives users the access to the systems without them needing to ever know those credentials. Here's how it works. So Password Safe is in the middle. That's your safe. That's regardless if this is an on-premises or a cloud deployment. You're going to log into your company's specific URL, and you're brought into Password Safe. The user's role that they're assigned, that they log in with, that context is going to define what they're able to do or not do once they're in Password Safe. So using role-based access control, we can say user is allowed to view or copy credentials, initiate sessions, or any combination of a number of the active capabilities in Password Safe, depending on what those users need to do. So the user logs in. When they SSH or RDP, they're proxying through Password Safe to get to those target systems, and then the credentials are injected into the session, and the user is ultimately logged in. If it's in the cloud, we deploy a resource broker. You can see them here at each location. These manage all of the active capabilities of the solution. So auditing, session replay, audit logs, and this is what cloud looks like. Your instance would be built in Azure as a single and dedicated tenant. And then you deploy the resource broker, which communicates securely to the cloud instance. The resource broker is the mechanism that is managing all of those active capabilities. Again, that RDP, SSH, session activity, password management, password rotation, that's all going through the resource broker. You can have multiple resource brokers for high availability. And as a best practice, you should have two to allow you to keep the active capabilities. With one, you still have access to the safe, but you lose all of the active features, which is why we recommend two. So let me show you Password Safe, and you can see how that actually works. Okay. So we have two different views here. We have a basic view, and then we have the administrator view. And this is where you have access to that central, control to manage all the different features and functions through role-based access control and granular permissioning, which dictates what someone's able to do once they log in. The basic user is a regular user who needs privileged access to do their jobs. And then the administrative user has full access and could perform all of the administrator activities. And again, both of those user contexts are controlled by role-based access control. So I'll go to the basic user first. This is my my user one standard user that I'm logged in as. I'm going to go ahead and go to Password Safe. And this is where I request access to the systems that I need to work on. So the administrator gives access to all of the systems in here. And if I only requested access to one session or one system to do my job, the administrator can control that. The administrator can lock things down based on what a user needs access to, giving them no more or less access that they need to do their job. If I didn't have permission to see certain things, those things simply wouldn't show up. So once I'm in, I can see how things are categorized here. So favorites These are favorites that I've defined. These are the systems that I access most frequently, and I set them here so that I can have quick access, and I don't have to go through and look through all of these other lists to search for them. So it adds additional efficiency by allowing that quick access. We also have the systems that I've recently accessed, systems where we have local accounts. These are local accounts for accessing these specific machines. We have databases, we have domain accounts, applications, and cloud accounts as well. So several different mechanisms for accessing your infrastructure. Okay. So to get back to the good stuff here, I'm going to go ahead and access one of my sessions in favorites. And you can see I have some Windows systems in here. I have some Linux systems in here. I'm going to go ahead and click on my Windows 02 server here, and I'm going to access that. But before I access it, I have some things that I might need to go through first in order to get that access. So I have a start date that could be set. Maybe we want to preset that for an upcoming project so it becomes available on a specific date and not before. I have something called an access policy. This is all based on the access policies I've been given by the administrator. The access policy is allowing for flexible access to the system by the administrator. So you could set things up for like auto approval right here, or you could make it more granular and require an approval workflow where an administrator has to take some kind of an action on a request for access. And these policies can be set up by working hours, where a user is going to have access during that window, but after hours, they might require approval as an example. Okay. We can also give time-based access. So we're allowing a user only the access that they need when they need it, no more, no less. So it gives you a lot of flexibility and security around protecting those assets. If you want users to view or copy passwords or launch RDP sessions, you could do that by setting a policy for it for whatever it is that you want them to do, and you could set that to have both of these fields or one of these fields. It really is very policy driven. You could force authorization processes where an admin has to approve the request before a user gets access, or you can have them access the credentials at all times. Basically, again, it's all based on policy. You can set up a reason. Why do you need access? We're going to say in here, demo. This is configurable. This could be set to either mandatory or optional. Here, I have it set to optional. And we could do the same thing down here with ITSM systems. In order to get access to these credentials, to this account, you need to fill in this information. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to submit request. And I can open the RDP session, okay? Or I can view the credential. I'm just going to go ahead and launch into it from my desktop here, okay? Click RDP. We get this splash screen. Once you get the BeyondTrust splash screen here, this is telling me that the connection is being made through password safe. So it's going to proxy through and establish that connection. It's bootstrapping the session and the credentials are injected so that you're connected to that remote system like a regular RDP. Never had to know the credentials. Once we're in the session, I'm going to go ahead and toggle over to the admin view. Okay. And I can view the active session and I can control it. So I'll go here to menu, go down to my active sessions, and now we're going to be able to see that session that we're in. Okay, here's that target, and we see that right here. So now we could capture keystrokes, we could capture activity here on the right. The session is also being recorded, so we can go back and review this session at a later time. I can choose to lock this session, terminate it, or terminate it and completely cancel it. So now with Password Safe, I have both visibility and control over what the users are doing here. Another method that users can take advantage of to access remote systems is something that we call Direct Connect. And this feature allows you to use existing tools. So it's like a bring your own tool sort of approach without having to go through the web-based interface of Password Safe. My example here is going to be MOBA Xterm. I'm going to use it to show how I can leverage an existing tool while using privileged credentials that are stored in Password Safe. So in MOBA Xterm, we'll go ahead and open this up. I have two systems that I can show. I have a Windows system and I have a Linux system. So what I'm going to do, we'll show the Windows system. I'm going to log into this using the credentials that I use to log into Password Safe. So this is the non-privileged credential. Okay, so I launch into the WinRDP session. The credentials are grabbed from the vault and Password Safe, injected into the session. All right. Sort of the same way I could launch the SSH session, and I have that same type of interaction. We'll double click on that, and I have to go ahead, log in with that non-privileged credential. And then you can see that's launched right in there. With Direct Connect, SSH, I could block specific commands from running and not allow things to run. Like if we were to use FTP, right? It's just going to go ahead and it's going to kill it. So we can block things at that level too. And I'm doing all of this on the specific tool that I prefer to use. So I'm not restricting anything or saying that users have to come into Password Safe in order to use things, but instead I can have, the tool, the preferred tool that I like to use in order to do that. Okay, we'll cancel out of this. The next thing we're going to go ahead and look at, we'll look at the discovery process. Okay, if we go here to our assets, okay, and we look at one of these assets and we go to the ellipsis here on the right and we go to view details, I have some more detailed information about this machine that I'm able to see. Okay, I can go into view advanced details and I can see other information here, right? What accounts might be tied to this, scheduled tasks, and even services, right? So a bit more insight into what's attached from a details perspective on those assets. For onboarding accounts and assets, we use something called Smart Rules to add those into Password Safe. Okay. You configure Smart Rules to determine that assets are added as either managed accounts that we have here or managed systems. First, I'll quickly show my managed systems here. Okay, so I'll look at Windows Server onboarding. I click on the details here. Oops. Okay, so this is where we can define our criteria. And what we're saying here is include all Windows platforms. And as a note, there are different kind of platforms that we can assign here. You can see Active Directory, Azure AD, BMC Remedy, etc. We define the actions after that and say, what is going to happen with respect to my specific managed account or managed system? Based on the Smart Rule, we define what we're going to find when we run discovery and we collect the details about a specific machine. So now we have the machine under management, and we can go ahead and we can save changes. In this demo case, I'm going to go ahead and discard those. Now we'll look at managed accounts in Smart Rules. So what we'll do is we'll look at local Windows Server accounts here. So if I go to the ellipsis here on the right, and I go to view details, these are very intuitive. If then sort of options, where if an attribute equals something, right, like an administrator, then we go down to actions, and now you're defining how you want to manage it, what that password policy is, how often that password is going to be rotated. So this allows us to add a level of automation around credential management, and also, allowing the passwords to be rotated often with complex passwords, which is simply best practice. Okay. If I go over here to managed accounts on the left bar, this is going to show you all of the accounts that you have under management in your environment. And we could see a couple of different things here. We could see system type, we could see platform type, when that password was last changed, the result of that password change, when the next one is scheduled. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead And I'm going to look at one of my specific accounts here, and we will pick the FileZilla service. FileZilla is a good example because this highlights how we can manage service accounts. So if I go here, we look at the details of this. I can see if there are any linked systems associated with this. We have WinServer 02. I can see specific events. So I could see if password changes were successful, when they were changed, if any services were restarted on the service account. In propagation actions, I could define what's going to happen once the password is rotated. In this case, I invoke an update service and restart. And then I can also look at password history, and I could see what prior passwords were used in the event that I need to use a previous password. If something crashes or I have to revert back to a previous password, I can retrieve it here. Or, and this is for any other managed account. Okay. So we talk about role-based access control and how we can manage things using permissions. So I'm going to go ahead and go to user management. This is where I can manage my specific roles. This is where you can assign permissions and determine who has access to what. Okay, so I'll just pick one of these here. I will go to view the details. Okay, I'll go to features. And this is where I can view and assign permissions. So if I go to the ellipsis on the right, you can see here I can assign permissions as read-only or as full control. Okay. Smart groups are where we define what users are going to have access to. So if we look at all managed accounts, for example, we go to the ellipsis. This is where I can define password safe roles. This is where you define what a user is able to do in a particular managed system. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead and look at is I'm going to look at directory queries. This is where we could define the directory type, where we could query the target system, and we define the scope of what we're going to query. So this is just an efficient way to query the different type of directories. How do we find things in Password Safe? Well, we do that through a process called discovery. So discovery is a process where we can scan the environment for assets, accounts, databases, etc. And what we'll do is we basically build a new discovery scan. We set the scan type, right? We can do discover local accounts or discover in a more detailed fashion. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. And we could basically set the scan target. So we could put single IP address in here, CIDR blocks, IP address ranges, named hosts. So for demo purposes, I'm just going to put a dummy IP address in here so that we could see. And then the scan agent is the appliance or resource broker that's in the password safe environment. We're going to go ahead and click next. And then we go ahead and we enter our credentials in here. We pick the credential that we need to run the scan, and then we put in our key that we have, and then we name our scan, and then we go ahead and run it. So now you've seen both the user context of Password Safe and also the administrative part of it, where we're able to manage the definition and configuration of the rules, groups, actions, how we set up directory queries, discovery scans, and essentially how we have a central place to be able to access things as the user and also configure and manage things as the administrator. I want to go ahead and thank you for your time, and I appreciate you watching my video.